Welcome to Parallel Session 1A, which will be discussing inclusive business models that promote digital inclusion. The COVID-19 pandemic has brought to surface the importance of digital technologies in our lives. They have become essential to communicate with our loved ones, to continue to work, or to attend school. Unfortunately, the crisis has also highlighted digital divides that multiply vulnerabilities and inequalities. But for inclusive business, digital technologies offer plenty of opportunities to reach those further behind and support digital inclusion. In this dialogue, business leaders from ASEAN will showcase how their business models promote digital inclusion and how they use digital technologies to promote inclusion. It is my great pleasure to welcome our panelists. We'll have Ms. Mint Lee, founder of School of Concepts from Singapore. We'll have Ms. Celia Boyd, co-founder and technical advisor of She Investments in Cambodia. Ms. Sutasini Sudprasert, or Kun Mo, will also join us, and she is the co-founder of Happy Grocers in Thailand. And our fourth speaker will be Ms. Nguyen Thao, Deputy Director and Vice Chairwoman of the Vietnam Women Entrepreneur Council of the Vietnam Chamber of Commerce and Industry. As you can see, this is a very gender imbalanced session. It was not intentional, and yet it's a great pleasure to be surrounded by female leaders promoting inclusive business. We will have a Q&A session after the first round of panel discussions. So please post any question that you may have to the panelists in the chat below. Now, let's start our discussions. And I would like to start with Ms. Lee. Min, you're the founder of School of Concepts in Singapore. And your company offers preschool literacy curriculum that supports inclusion of children with learning difficulties. And moreover, your company is inclusive in its employment practices. And I think the audience will be very interested in hearing a bit more about the gaps that you're trying to address and how digital technologies are helping you to promote inclusion. And also, I'm interested to hear about how are you making sure that your business is inclusive in a very holistic manner. Over to you.
Thank you for the introduction, Marta, and hello everyone. Good morning to almost good afternoon from my side from Singapore. So I'm Mint from School of Concepts, and we run a school that aims to give every child equal access to quality education. So in terms of the gaps that we're trying to address, we've seen many children who are very privileged obtain education through ways because their parents might be more economic or financially viable. However, we've also seen children who are very brilliant but unable to afford such forms of enrichment or quality programs locally or externally. So we've seen how that has created quite a gap because many of these children are actually, they actually have a lot more potential, but because of their social economic background and status, they are unable to do so. So speaking from personal experience, I grew up slightly disadvantaged as a child with a learning need and with some financial difficulties. So I often felt that, I was not deserving of going to a mall for education. I would have to go with the bare minimum or whatever that was free. So today, School of Concepts is founded to create that sort of inclusiveness, that sort of accessibility for students to learn, and of course, achieve a certain level of learning confidence. So children at our school, all children are welcome to our school. So they do not have to worry that they might not have the financial means to attend lessons at our school. We have a means testing system. So if a student comes from, say, a lower income family, they will be given an in-house subsidy that we provide from internally from our company. So they would not have to worry about being unable to make payments. However, at the same time, we don't give these programs completely free. So they still feel that they have some skin in the game. On top of that, we have also strategically placed our centers in shopping malls because we understand that we don't want these children to think that they cannot afford to go to malls for lessons. So it's to give them the concept and understanding that they too are very, very much deserving of what every other child deserves. at that very young age. So that's the sort of gap that we're trying to address. And when we talk about accessibility to education and this the whole pandemic, we have also created a greater accessibility to quality programs using mobile learning platforms, customized learning management systems as solutions for students to learn. So we customize hands-on experiences with digital support to enable children to bring that learning home, to still enjoy that learning through a mobile device or through a laptop, as long as they have certain level of Wi-Fi, 4G or 5G. And this has definitely helped promote a high level of accessibility and inclusion for students, because they can learn from anywhere and everywhere, so long as they have connectivity. At the same time, our programs have also been very successful for children with learning needs. Being a person who's dyslexic myself, the curriculum and the methodology is actually created using my experience as a child and going and viewing it through my lens to help me enable myself to read. So this has proven to be highly successful in enabling many children to read. And of course, as a school, we always speak about, walking the talk. We enroll inclusively. We want to say that we want to give all children access to quality education. But being educators ourselves, it is so important to us as School of Concepts that we walk that talk. So in our school, we also hire inclusively. 30% of our operational team are persons with physical or intellectual disabilities. However, they are definitely hired through their strengths and not through other forms of accommodation. What we actually do is that we assess their strengths and we allow them to contribute through their strengths. And they have very much positively contributed to our organization and the progress of our team as a social enterprise. They bring a lot of joy to the children, a lot of positivity, and a lot of resilience in many things that they do. So in our school, we not only enroll inclusively, we also hire inclusively. And this is what we mean by walking the talk as educators and having a school that's truly holistically inclusive.
Thank you very much, Mint, for giving this snapshot of your business. And I'm sure that we could elaborate further later on your business model as we move into the questions and answers session. Let me now turn on to Ms. Celia Boyd. Celia, you're the co-founder of She Investments in Cambodia, a business incubator that supports women with micro, small, and growing and businesses to scale, create social and economic impact for the communities. And we'll be interested to hear a bit more about how you enable women to have greater economic and social impact, and what's the role that digital technologies is playing in your mission to support that.
Sure. Thank you so much for having me. Hi, everyone. So I'm Celia. I'm obviously not Cambodian. I'm Australian, based in Cambodia for the past 7 years, and I'm a co-founder of She Investments, which is an incubator accelerator for women micro to small entrepreneurs. So to be honest, digital inclusiveness was really not a consideration for us until COVID hit and we realized what a gap it was. So I have a very brief thing to share with you about our journey here. But in terms of the topic today around inclusive and accessible businesses, She Investments started in 2015 as the first gender-focused and culturally tailored incubator accelerator for Khmer women. And so what that means is that our ethos, our goal is to be a business incubator which is designed for Khmer women and delivered by Khmer women. So that means adhering to Khmer culture with really amazing Khmer female role models, and supporting women to build support structures around them, which are accessible to them and the culture and background that they're coming from, and really designed for them to set them up for success. So during COVID, or I suppose as soon as COVID happened, and I know that was a really intense time for everyone. I think the biggest surprise or realization for us was that it really highlighted this need for digital literacy for women entrepreneurs, and the digital skills of the entrepreneurs that we were working with, and even our team members, were quite a lot lower than what we initially expected. And so we very quickly realized that many of the entrepreneurs that we were trying to reach through support services, whether that be training, coaching, or even crisis management, webinars or group sessions, actually couldn't even access them online because we were all working from home and in lockdowns, and no one really knew how to use platforms like Zoom, for example. And so rather than expecting everyone to be able to just do that pivot or that transition straight away, we realized that we actually had to go back and help women to build the skills that they needed to be able to access these services in a new environment online. So what we did was work with Youth Business International and supported by Google.org to very quickly design a new program, a digital literacy program, which was delivered for the women entrepreneurs we were supporting, and in parallel to the incubator programs we were running. And so we worked with 94 women over about 18-month period, 14 months, sorry. And we created a program which was accessible for them in terms of building the digital skills that they needed to adapt to this new environment, and accessible in terms of working with the digital tools and resources that enabled them to improve their digital presence and participation with the tools that they already had available to them. So, for example, depending on their financial situation, particularly as a result of COVID, that might mean working with free applications and helping them understand that all of the many free tools that are out there for them, and working with the tools they already had, such as their smartphones. So as a very quick overview, what we found through that program was that, first of all, it was very wanted and needed by many women. We had more applications for this digital literacy program than we've ever had for any program ever. So we had hundreds of applications. We had about 97 women participate and 94 women graduate from the full program, 100% of whom said that the program helped them to learn digital literacy skills, which enabled their business to adapt to the new situation, and then they would recommend it to other women. So we looked at things like monthly revenue, for example. We found at the beginning that within the first 2 months of the pandemic, collectively, applicants to the program had lost over 50% of revenue very, very quickly, monthly revenue, I should say. So what we found as a result of them building these digital skills up and adapting to this new environment was that this helped them to recover some of that revenue and to begin to start operating again. So an example would be understanding how to use their Facebook business page effectively to sell products online, for example. We also counted the economic impact in terms of the number of jobs that were retained, rehired, or new hires, because we realized that by working with women, their first concern was the people in their business, was their employees, and they were very, very concerned about keeping jobs and making sure their staff were okay. And a thing that our partners, that Google really wanted to see, was how could we support these businesses to actually continue trading because of obviously the wider economic impact that the pandemic was having in Cambodia and across Southeast Asia. So I'll stop sharing there. But that's a brief kind of overview of how we try to create accessible programs. Obviously, we have a lot to improve, as many organizations I'm sure do, but that has been our response to the COVID situation in particular. So thank you.
Thanks very much, Celia, for highlighting also, as our previous speaker meant, on the importance of designing for inclusivity and really tailoring the programs and the work to ensure that we reach to women, to those with learning disabilities. Let me now move on to our third speaker, Kun Mo, Kumu, you're the co-founder of Happy Grocers in Thailand, and your business delivers food at my doorstep, and I mean it literally, because you actually deliver organic food from smallholder farmers in my residence. So maybe it'll be great if you can share a bit how your business models support small farmers to have a better income in Thailand, and how you have taken platform technologies to support small farmers. And of course, as always, we are interested on hearing about the specific elements that make your business model to be inclusive, to reach out and to include, in this case, smallholder farmers. Over to you.
Yeah, sure. Hi, everybody. My name is Mo, and I'm the co-founder of Happy Grocers. And we are basically a startup that's based in Bangkok, where we connect agricultural products from small farmers to customers in the city, which is Bangkok, and also all over the country as well. And so the first question was how does our model work, right? And how do we support small farmers? I think the best way to explain that is to go back first. What exactly are the problems that we try to solve? So there are actually three main problems that we have been working on a daily basis and to try to fix it. And the first one is the unfair price of agricultural products for farmers, because there's so many middlemen in the process. And the second thing is the lack to the market with the higher value, because there are so many stories of farmers that we met before where they were sharing to us that although they are doing organic, but they have to sell it in this price of the conventional farming, because the only market that they have access to are the local market, where they wouldn't be able to be more competitive as long as they stay there, because people only value the price. So that's the second problem. And the last problem that we are trying to solve is the unrealistic beauty standard for the agricultural products, that basically our farmers and many farmers around Thailand have to throw away about like over half of their produce in each batch because they don't look beautiful enough to be sent to the market or to the supermarket. And so yeah, those are the three main problems that we are trying to solve. And the way that we are fixing those problems is that essentially after our research that we started, me and my co-founder started since we were in university, which is about a few years ago, to the research that we have been doing since we started this business last year in March 2020, it has become clear that we really need a new market for our farmers. And when I say new market, I mean a market where we basically have sustainably grown products, either it's organic or any method that basically don't use chemicals or synthetic pesticides, and also a practice that really promote the biodiversity of the environment. And in order to have this market, something that's really important for us to be able to reach to that point is for us to re-educate our consumers. So a lot of things, the main reason why our farmers are still not having access to the market and also still using chemicals is basically that there's no demand for that, right? And from our research and our practice, we have learned that in order to shift the understanding or the demand of the consumers, we really need to educate our consumer. And that's where digital technology comes to play, because as a young person, we are super keen to use social media, and we really enjoy to just like advocate for what we believe in on the social network platform. And that is a big part of our business as well. So something that we have been sharing with our consumers and inviting them to be a part of this movement is where we create a new understanding of, not a new understanding, but something that the food system hasn't really been sharing with the consumers, which is where food comes from. So we basically are trying to be super transparent with our process, from where food comes from, how food is transported, how we select our product, getting people to get to know the farmers and really get to know what it really takes to produce sustainable or agricultural, organic agricultural products, so that farmers and so that consumers understand that why certain things have to be in certain price, and what does it mean when they pay certain price, who does it support, how is it supporting the environment, how is it good for their health. And that's basically how we started to use the digital technology, which is social media like Facebook, Instagram, and all those social media you can think of. And that's the starting point on educating consumers. But education is not enough. We really need a call to action, right? So that's when we also integrate our solution of a grocery store for people to be able to, once they understand where food come from, when they understand the impact, then they can just take action right away with just to order their delicious, yummy, fresh grocery to their homes. And it's super easy process. And that's when we start to integrate a website, and now working on an application. And that's when we also see the importance of using artificial intelligence and also machine learning as well, to be able to cater the more seamless experience for our customers, to be able to eat in a way that they can heal the world and support the community, but also have the best experience out of their shopping as well. Like Marta said before, we also deliver to Marta's residents, and that's also another model that we do on top of our home delivery service on website, which is we basically organize mini farmers market to go to condos, offices, embassies, schools, because we believe that that's also a way for us to build a community around conscious consumers. And also on top of that, we also do activities like farm trip, online, offline workshops, and also basically just do meetups where that was before COVID and when the COVID was a little better. But we do these activities because we really would like to build a movement of consumers to be a part to solve this problem. Because for us as Happy Grocer, we believe that inclusion is not only to invite our farmers to be a part of the process, but to invite our consumers to be a part of the process to solve the problems in the food supply chain in Thailand as well. And yeah, that's it for Happy Grocer. Thank you.
Thank you, Komo, for this very lively and from the heart presentation of your experience in supporting small scale farmers in Thailand. I would like to just pause a minute to ask our audience, please post your questions in the chat so that we can then invite speakers to answer any questions that you may have. If you're curious about finding more about their business models or their plans in the future. And also feel free to share your own business models and experience in promoting inclusive businesses. Let me now turn to Ms. Nguyen Thao, Deputy Director and Vice Chairwoman of the Vietnam Women Entrepreneur Council. As we heard before, Vietnam has just launched the landscape study of inclusive business, which was carried out by ESCAP and iBAN. And the Vietnam Women Entrepreneur Council has been consulted and participated in this study. The study has highlighted several inclusive businesses in the country, and some of them led by women. And I'll be very happy if you could share with us, Ms. Thao, some of these business models in Vietnam and how they promote digital inclusion. Over to you.
Yeah. Good morning, everyone. Thank you, Marta, for your questions. As you mentioned that Vietnam has just launched the landscape study of inclusive business in Vietnam. And through this study, 19 enterprises has been identified as a real and potential inclusive business model, in which 9 are real IB and 10 potential inclusive business model. And maybe you can find in the study report, there are some business led by women, in which there are 2 models led by women as a real IB inclusive, Quang Vinh Ceramic Company and the TYM Microfinance Institution. And there are 2 other potential IB model. It is a Sunstar Joint Stock Company or South Thái Dương and TMTM Moringa Company led by women. So now in Vietnam, women led about 24% of enterprise informal sector. And Vietnamese business women now play a very strong role in the society. They are respected by the committed and social-oriented business work, balancing business returns and social benefit in the value chain. And before the IB concept was introduced, in fact, many companies led by women in Vietnam already been operating towards this model, because women usually pay their attention to social interests, and it seems that it's easier to encourage female business leaders to transform to IB model. And let me share a little bit about the inclusive business model in Vietnam, which identified from the survey a woman-led company, Quang Vinh Ceramic. This company was established in 1991 as a leading ceramic company in the traditional ceramic village of Bát Tràng in Hanoi. And its vision is to support selected craft villages to export and market their products, helps them meet quality standards, generate better income opportunity for the village families. It has about 300 labor in its main factory in Quảng Ninh province, with 95% are women and almost come from poor household. The company's strategy is focused on innovation solution to develop high-value, innovative and technology-intensive products for high-end markets, and almost of its products are export to markets such as Japan, Australia, United States, and the European Union. And as the company also developed technological innovation and reform production process to reduce the heavy workload for women in the factory. For example, using lifting equipment for heavy object, semi-automatic machine loading equipment, reducing smoke, dust, and keeping the environment green. And innovation is the priority of the company. Most are related to technologies. This company also got the first prize for its super thin and super light ceramic products in a creative contest in the province. And the factory also got the status of Science and Technology Enterprise certified by the Ministry of Science and Technology since 2017. Through technology and digital solution, the cost for input material has been decreased by 35 to 40%, and the energy expenses also been reduced by 25%. The products are manufactured with new materials, design, technologies, and have a highly artistic and fashionable, but with a reasonable price. And by adopting new technology, digital platform in manufacturing and operation, the company has been approaching markets and can cut down costs, increase income for the company, so that the company can provide excellent welfare system for workers beyond the government requirements, including social and health insurance, learning promotion fund, and vocational orientation for the workers' children, summer vacation camp, or small loans with zero interest rate for household housing repairs and family economic development. This is a very special policy of the company to their workers, and the company has created a great impact to the society. And Quang Vinh Ceramic Company not only has export product to other country, but it product also selling in local market with reasonable price. So low-income people can buy their product with good quality. And this company is an example of inclusive business model in Vietnam. And as Ms. Thuy from the Agency of Enterprise Development has said, the study was surveyed with limited number of enterprise, and we believe that there are still many women-led enterprises in Vietnam as a real model and also a potential model. And if this potential inclusive business model can receive support and guidelines, they can become the real inclusive business model in the near future. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Ms. Thao Nguyen, for sharing an example of an inclusive business led by a woman in Vietnam and how they're harnessing technologies to make it more inclusive and sustainable. I think these are very good examples that we've heard today. And I will now, we've had the time to briefly introduce your business models. And now we will be diving deeper and exploring several questions put forward by the audience. And I want to warn Ms. Kun Mo, there are a few questions coming your way. But to all the panelists, I would like to get you prepared to answer a question that we always have as development partners. How can we scale up impact? We are always encouraged to do more and to have a greater social and economic impact, in this case, support low-income communities. What are your plans? Do you have any plans to scale up? And what are the opportunities that you see for scaling up? And if we start with Kun Mo, I have several questions. The first will be, how many farmers are you currently reaching, and what's the potential that you see to scale up and to reach to more farmers? And then some more specific question on how Happy Grocers is helping illiterate farmer communities, and what if you provide any sort of training to farmers to be able to work together as a collaborate and join your platform. Also had a question about organic certification. Does it play an important role or not for your business model? And the third question, and I think there was a lot of interest on the work that you're doing on educating the consumer as well. So how are you listening to the feedback of the consumer? How do you distinguish, separate the noise from what's really important feedback that you can use in developing your model? So take your time and over to you.
Okay, just to repeat the questions. So the first question is how are we planning to scale our impact model, right? Okay, so I have to give a pre-story first that so one of our team members, like the core team, he used to be the inspector for Organic Thailand, which is one of the most trusted organic certification in Thailand. And he is also has been working and studying his PhD in agriculture as well. So a lot of our initial contact of farmers come from him. His name is A. He's like our advisor, brother, and business partner. So it started from his own farm first in Phayao, which is the north of Thailand. And then we just go through his connection and start to refer to other farmers as well. And to date, we have about 100 farmers that have been working with us in 16 provinces around the country. And so something that we have learned from our experiences is that it's actually really difficult to manage food and vegetable supply chain, in the sense that at first, before we met A, we started to do that by ourselves. And something that we have discovered is that there are many different stages of growth of each farm, in the sense that some farms are super great at like planning. Some farms are really good even to do logistics and do marketing by themselves. So these farms are really easy to manage, right? But we really wanted to work with small farms that are like untouched. So we started from those farms and then discovered that the schedule for our customers to order was like, oh, you have to order this vegetable on Monday, milk on Tuesday, and egg on Thursday. So people have to remember so many days to order. And then we discovered that the experience of the customer was not good at all if they have to just like remember everything and not being able to just one click and then get it delivered to their homes. So then we shift the strategy to also work with medium and bigger farms as well to make sure that our priority is to get supply from small farms. But if one day there is a shortage, then we have a secondary farms that we can go to make sure that our supply chain is seamless. So if you use our service right now on happygrocer.co, you're going to be able to just select whatever you need and then get it delivered the next day in one box. And that's the only thing you have to remember, is to just order before 8 p.m. And so something that we have discovered from that experience is that there's a lot of things that small farms can also learn from other big farms that are super willing to share with other fellows as well. But also working with as an organic inspector, what he has to do is also help farmers get the certifications as well. So he has been advising a lot of our farms as well to be able to reach the standard that we have, which is first something that's the most important for us is not actually the certification, but the certification is kind of like a way for us to get recognized that our brand is trusted. But we have been communicating to our customers all the time that certification is actually not 100% guarantee about whether this product is good for the environment or this product is like the best for you, because there are many other factors as well, because some certification also have different standards. But what we try to communicate to our consumer is that myself and my partner would visit the farms and actually look at whether it's actually supporting the biodiversity of the farm. Like, for example, looking to the kind of water source they use, how they actually design the farm, the barrier they have. The soil quality would be by A because it's like really scientific. And also to see if this farm is operating in a way that support other community members as well. And we also always like share this information and invite our customers to also come to the farm visits as well to see it by themselves. So how we are planning to scale this business is that something that we have learned from talking to many farmers is that, and I remember one specific farmer said to me that if you can bring the demand to us, we would do anything to make sure that our products meet those qualifications. And he talks about organic farming, because a lot of farmers in Thailand do not want to take the risk to not being able to like put a lot of hard work, 3 years to get the soil to be organic, and then not sure that at the end of the year 3 they would be able to sell organic because they don't have like an assured market for that. So when we get this insight that is repeatedly said by our farmers, we then made a commitment that, okay, it sounds like if we want to change the face or the practice around the country when it comes to agriculture, we need to have a really strong and big demand that requires sustainable products and products that support the community and also good for the environment. So once we understand that thinking mindset of the farmer, then we started to focus a lot on how to build our market. And that is also the reason why we have the business model to be the delivery-based company, because with this model we can scale not only just in Bangkok, but also around the country as well. Because right now we also in our experiment to ship around the country, which has been working really well. So that is how we are planning to scale our business model, which is to rely on our website, our application, which is coming soon, and then basically connect this demand to our farmers. But so it's kind of like a work that you have to do at the same time of maintaining the quality, engaging with farmers, educating farmers to be able to reach the standard that we have, and also to maintain and build the demand of the consumers and then connect this demand to our farmers. So that's the first question of the how do we scale our business, right? The second question is how do we educate and engage our farmers, right? Okay, I think I already talked about that a little bit, but I'm just gonna dive into more. So So PA, I'm gonna be mentioning him a lot because he has such a big role in our supply. So PA, I call him P, I mean older brother. PA basically, so his role when it comes to organic certification is that there would be like certain criteria from things like not using pesticides, using only natural fertilizers, how we prepare the soil, making sure there is a right water source, and all these kind of requirement, right? So his role to support farmers to be able to get each certification is to coach from like knowledge to practice for each farmers to be able to reach those standards. So the relationship that PA has with farmer is really deep because he literally have to spend months and months in each farm to coach the farmers. Something that I have learned from him is that he never said it has been easy, because it's not just having the knowledge to do it or knowing how to do it. It's also about the mindset of the farmers as well, because when you have to work really hard and wait for a long time to be paid off by the products that you grow organically, as compared to a conventional market that just wants something beautiful and just quick money, then people would think that, oh, maybe it's safer to choose the second choice. But then, so that's why PA always mentioned that it's really about the mindset and about the community that farmers are surrounded themselves with. Because most of the time, if someone say that they would go organic in rural Thailand, and then people would be like, oh, you're crazy. This word would come out so often. But then, so that's also something that we would like to support our farmers to be empowered to do that, by not only just visit them ourselves and really spend time, build relationship with our farmers, but also to invite our consumers to go to the farm as well. Because the last time that we did the farm trip, what happened was the farmer was so proud that people from Thailand, also other countries, really value what they grow in the rural part of Thailand. I remember there's this farmer who was just like going on Facebook Live and be like, oh, we are here at this community. And then she was just like inviting people to see that this is happening in their community. And that means a lot to farmers. And that's also the reason why it's so important for us to give credits to our farmers and like to really tell their stories, because actually I think morale and like being proud to be farmer is also a really important factor to empower our farmers to keep producing good products as well. So that's the second part. The third one is, how do we educate our consumer? Is that correct? Okay, so so the way that we educate our consumers is that, so my background is in social entrepreneurship and not science. So I always feel like the knowledge that we should understand about where our food come from, beside the location or like people who grow it, the cultural aspect of it also has to be scientific as well, right? So I'm always on this challenge to like try to break down scientific knowledge in the normal people language on social media. And if you go through our Instagram or Facebook, just by Happy Grocer's name, you would see that there are always contents of like funny videos or just like really engaging posts of people doing activities or showing how we row at the farms. And this kind of contents, it has been really fun, and it actually has been really impactful in the sense that we can see that a lot of people actually come and like say to us that, oh, they actually really appreciate the way we do marketing, because it's not only just try to sell something, but we have always been to we always trying to just share our journey, because I feel like the way that we build this company has always been to build it with our consumers, and in the sense that, so something that's really important and is really the core of our business is to start from understanding where the problem is and try to solve it from listening to that really carefully. So I could say that so the beginning of Happy Grocers actually started from one Facebook post of me saying that, hey, I have products, order with me. And from that, we keep listening to what people need and what people would think that would be valuable and make their life easier. And then from product selection, it's also from people's request to the way we should do logistics, times, packaging, or even actually content creation is also from something that we learn from our consumer, what they would like to learn more as well. So I feel like this company is really like a community project in a way, because it's not only just us who dictate what we should do, but we are informed what we should do from our consumers. And how do we do that, right? So one thing that we do that is that our social media, we don't just use it to post content, we use it to actually communicate with our consumers. Sometimes I would remember our consumers names and like birthday and send them gifts and stuff like that, because we actually take time to talk. Like I'm so not active on my personal Instagram because I spend so much time talking to my consumers because it's actually so much fun. So that's one thing that we do. Other things would be the grocery truck model that goes to your home as well, Marta. We use that opportunity to also meet customer face to face, because the model is that we use it's like a food truck but full of fruits and vegetable, and people can come and pick things by hand and meet their neighbors. But it's also an opportunity for me and my team to ask for feedback and really learn about what they like, see how we can improve the service. And that's another thing that we do. Other ways would be when we organize events, or like either online or offline, is also an opportunity for us to meet and talk to consumers as well. And also we position ourselves really clearly that we are a brand that are really willing to listen to feedback, and we take these feedback really seriously. And I remember there was a questions about how do we select which feedback to follow, right? So the way that we do that is that actually we are pretty lucky that most of the people who have been our customers are like super kind and genuine. So when they give feedback, it's already constructive feedback. So most of the time we could just like take that and just implement. But there are some times where we get some really negative comments as well that reflects a really small part of the customers. That's also is really important for us, but then also we need to prioritize first what we can do to like what we can afford to serve that need. Like for example, there were some comments on like the very first month that we started, which we started from 0 baht, we didn't have any capital at all. People just said that, oh, you should do an application. And then it was clear that we couldn't do an application 2 years ago, or like, no, not 1 year and 3 months ago, we couldn't do application for sure because we don't have the money for that. But we just take note of that and then just keep that in our future plan that, okay, one day application needs to be out, and then we just work our way towards that, either to make sure that we have the right business model that would be able to bring us enough profit to be reinvested in those kind of technology, or also pitch in many business competition to win some grants, and also just like keep collecting this budget to be able to invest in that. So I think the key to taking feedback from consumers is that first thing we also need to look at, I mean, like customer service is like #1 priority in our company, but also need to look at what we can do, what we can afford at the moment. If we cannot afford to do that now, when is it that we can do that in the future? And also, what if you get some negative comments sometimes, I think our best therapy for that is just to look at the bright side and see how many people that actually love us and give us love, because that actually has been really helpful for our team. Like we have had hard days, but then we just turn to or think of customers that have been sending us support and love, and that really brighten up our days and just keep us going. I'm not sure if I answered everything already.
Thanks very much, Kunmo. I think that's been it. a very good description of your business model with a lot of detail, and I really appreciate that. I appreciate that to hear the important role that the founders play in setting the vision, in having the patience, in developing those networks, in bringing knowledge as well. And the reality is that developing inclusive business model is not an easy task, because you're trying to combine at least two bottom lines, the economic and the social, and sometimes even three bottom lines with the being sustainable. And all the credit to you and your company for listening to the farmers and to the consumers and make that bridge between the two. I have some questions, and that will be also for all the panelists to hear about how you started, what enabled you to start your business operations in terms of funding. How did you start it from funding? But so we may come back to you, Kun Mo, on the funding side. But let me now ask some of our other panelists on their potential for scaling up. So maybe perhaps Celia, if you would like to share a bit, what's the potentials that you see for scaling up, for scaling up your operations, but also for supporting women to expand their own businesses? Over to you.
Sure, thank you. So it's a good question. It's kind of tied to, when you said how did you start, how did you finance these things? We started very organically as a business ourselves, with 3 co-founders volunteering, and we crowdfunded $14,000 to start and went from there. So it's interesting to see the point where we're at now as a more established business with 37 staff across multiple provinces, and deciding how we're going to scale up from there. And one thing we've realized is that scaling up for us does not mean taking over the world and having teams and offices in multiple countries around Asia. For us, we want to create understanding, and we want to change the system that we're working within, which is supporting women's entrepreneurship. And we want to demonstrate a model that enables women's businesses to scale. And so rather than scaling up as an enterprise ourselves, what we intend to do is scale up our digital work, our digital tools and resources to reach more people, and to work with more and more partners to replicate proven models and evidence-based programming to enable them to continue delivering and scaling up that work. So an example is a project that we've actually done in partnership with UN ESCAP and local government in Cambodia, is identifying a need for financial literacy for entrepreneurs, and alongside that, tools and resources which are accessible for them. So we've worked with ESCAP to create a basic bookkeeping app, which is dual language and dual currency, alongside educational resources to help entrepreneurs, particularly women, micro-sized informal entrepreneurs, to really help them separate business and family money, which is a very gendered barrier that most entrepreneurs in countries such as Cambodia come up against. And so that they can really, record adequately and understand the money that they're making, use those financial records to access further finance. And that's a tool that we can train many people in, but also that is very scalable and accessible. So that's very much a prototyping kind of testing stage now, but we have about 5,000 registered users for that application, and we are scaling that up alongside financial literacy learning resources. So figuring out how to do some of these things whilst maintaining the quality of what we do, but also reaching more people and creating scalable solutions is a challenge, but something that we're definitely relying on digital solutions for.
Thanks, Celia. And staying on that topic of the opportunities that digital technologies offer, there was a question on are the digital technologies for the better or for the worse for being inclusive? What's your overall take on digital technologies for supporting marginalized groups or low-income communities?
I mean, my personal opinion, I suppose, based on experience, is that you know, in the light of COVID, there's this you cannot just say you know, e-commerce is here, digital tools are here, and now we're in this new environment, and expect everyone to just be able to come along for that ride and transition and pivot. That's not really the way it works. That's the way that maybe the tech industry works, and maybe, you know, medium, large-sized companies can work. But the vast majority of entrepreneurs in Asia are micro-sized and informal businesses. And in some countries, such as Cambodia, for example, the majority of entrepreneurs are women running micro businesses. And so we cannot leave them out of that conversation and out of that transition. So you know, we value female tech entrepreneurs, we value innovative entrepreneurs, but we don't put as much value into the vast majority of women who are driving our economies. So rather than saying, well, adapt and here's the new environment and everyone's going to go digital, we have to understand that it's really crucial to build those digital skills first. It's really crucial to invest in human capital and to build these skills moving forwards if we're going to expect the drivers of these economies to actually be able to recover and rebuild from this pandemic. So it's not as sexy as, you know, scaling up really like digital innovation tools and products, but actually onboarding, building those basic digital skills and onboarding women onto these platforms and helping these platforms and the new digital economy to be more accessible for all kinds of entrepreneurs, no matter their gender or you know, where they're coming from. I think that's what's missing, and that's the most important thing.
Thanks very much, Celia, for recalling the importance of bringing everyone on board and educating on digital skills and digital finance. Let me go to ask now Ms. Min Lee for what are your plans for having greater impact? Is there any scope for you to scale up the impact that you're already having in providing better learning opportunities to everyone?
Timely question, actually. We are about to launch our learning management system in the Asian region beyond just Singapore towards the end of Q4 this year to better benefit more children, to make the sort of programs that we offer more accessible to children through mobile learning devices and through online devices. At the same time, we are also going to displace what we consider impact franchising. It's a bit unique. I think some questions that I saw earlier were, you know, how businesses can actually start up like that. And I think having a sound for-profit social enterprise model is important because as much as, you know, we live today, as much as we want to do good, we have to live up to the entrepreneur or the social enterprise model where we still have to be very much sustainable. So we are looking to share our social enterprise business model, and hopefully with impact franchising, more will be keen to replicate a School of Concepts model in their region so that more children can have accessible or can access quality programs through the region or the geographic space that they are in, and be able to afford the education services regardless of their socioeconomic status.
Great to hear about this plan. So will this be in the Southeast Asia region that you're moving to? And could you give us a bit more, if you have enough information to share now, of course.
Oh yes. So we are looking to move. Towards Vietnam, Malaysia, and Indonesia for the education technology portion, because we noticed that more and more friends in that region have accessibility to mobile devices, and the children would like to pick up literacy lessons because our main programs are actually early literacy lessons for young children. And we also see a greater focus on early education, and that definitely helps. In the other space, in terms of impact franchising, we're looking at similarly same regions, but mainly Indonesia and Vietnam. As we can see that there are spaces where we've gotten inquiries where people are curious and they want to build a more inclusive school in their space and within their community.
And what are some of the challenges that you foresee that you will be facing to move into to these other countries? What you think will be your key challenges that you have to address? Will it be finance? Will it be knowing the market? Will it be
Well, I think the main challenge would be finding very like-minded partners, because having a for-profit model as a social enterprise and achieving a historical record of being sustainable in that sense would give investors or franchisees that sort of confidence that this would definitely work. However, of course, we want to make sure that whoever we enter into this partnership with will uphold and ensure that the school continues to be as inclusive as we hope for it to be, and not let profits get in the way of how our social impact should be.
Okay, thanks very much.
Thank you.
Let me now give also the opportunity to Ms. Thao Nguyen to share. Maybe you could talk us of what's the role that you think your organization can play in promoting more inclusive businesses in Vietnam and encouraging more women to lead and to expand inclusive business models? Over to you.
Thank you, Marta, for the questions. Regarding to the question, I would like to share a little bit about the activity of our council. Today in this panel, only me is from the Women Business Association, and the other as from a woman-led enterprise, the founder or the CEO. And in Vietnam, and the same as in other country in ASEAN or in the world, the industrial revolution 4.0 has affected many businesses, and the businesses need to adapt with many changes in business environment, and in which digital inclusion is very important for their sustainable development. And we understand that digital platforms are good solution for companies because they can find new buyers, expand markets through e-commerce. And now when we see the COVID-19 affected on the business community, the company also they join attending a virtual exhibition booths or virtual trade mission also. Using digital marketing channel to save costs, find supplier, and selling to customer. Accordingly, enterprise in general and inclusive business company in particular also have an important role to promote digital inclusion in the company and the society. But I think that inclusive business itself themselves have to improve digital knowledge and skill using effective digital platform, be ready for digitalize their business first, and then after that they can integrate in its strategies to help more employees have their supplier or buyer in the digital inclusions. But we understand that digital inclusion is not the duty or the role of IB company only or our members. They will need support from governments, business association, and other development organizations. And as an organization representing for women entrepreneurs in Vietnam, Vietnam Women Entrepreneurs, we have implemented different programs and activities to support women-led enterprise in digital transformation process, improving their digital skill and knowledge. For example, we organize many activities to raise awareness on digital economy, digital transformation through organizing forum, workshop, training on this topic. And as you may know, in Vietnam, Vietnam government also issues a national strategy on digital transformation in early of 2020s. And from 2007 until now, we also cooperate with Facebook through Simin Business program to train digital skill for women-led enterprise, especially small, medium, and micro enterprise in Vietnam. And this training also reach to women household in rural areas and mountainous province to poor women who will be potential supplier for the value chains or supply chains. And we are also in the impact of the pandemics and lockdown situation in Vietnam also, we have organized activity in hybrid format, in a very flexibility format, sometimes hybrid, sometimes we also offline activity, but also virtual trainings for women business in Vietnam. That is our solution in the state like this. Yeah. And another point I would like to mention is that the partnership of government and private sector, the PPP model, is also very important to support enterprise in general and women-led enterprise in digital transformation toward inclusive business model. That is the solution, so that no one let no one behind. Yeah. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Ms. Thao Nguyen. Let's now move into the second round, additional round of questions, a general question on how did you start it? Where did you get your initial funding to support your idea? And how have you been able to tap into different sources of finance to further grow and develop your business model? And what are some of the challenges that you're facing when wanted to use to finance business operations and business development that seeks not only economic growth, but also social impact? So let me start, for example, with Khun Mo, please.
Yeah, just to repeat the questions, the question is how do we go about finance or like funding for our company, right?
Yes.
Okay, so I have a really funny story, and I guess it's just like a startup classic story. So we actually started, like I said before, that we started from one Facebook post, right? And then it's me and my friend whose name is Pérez, which is my co-founder. And we started off with 2 friends, 0 capital investment, and 1 garage that's owned by her family. And the reason that we could get the business started off was because we started off with the pre-order model. So we would post out for like 1 or 2 days, collect orders, get people payment in advance, and then we would purchase the products from the farmers and then deliver that to them with our own car. And at the beginning, literally everything was done by me and my co-founder, from like sourcing, packing, delivering. I remember there were times that we start delivering at like 1 p.m. and finish at 10 p.m. But that was actually a really meaningful learning experience for us, because we would literally understand every process of the business value chain to understand how our future employee would feel like in each situation as well, and to learn what are potential like challenges and problem solving strategies that we could do, and then would assist us our employee better. So that's like the beginning, right? And then a few months after we started, we participated in a startup competition. It's called Startup Thailand League, and then won a little grant for winning the prize. And then, yeah, actually after that competition, we have a really close relationship with the Thai government, and the Thai government has like a really supportive policies for young and youth startup. So we basically have been in conversation a lot with them about how they can support us, join a few programs, and now they have a really, really nice grant, which is about like 4,000 euros. It's like an initial startup funding for startup that are already proven to be valid in the market, already have customers, already have like a strong business model, and then they just give that away for startups that are qualified. So to date, we haven't, it's still me and my co-founder who own the company 100%, but we also could see that the strategy we have been using is to try to see what we can afford, like how do we utilize the resources and gradually grow the business. And also, yeah, I think that in our case, the government actually has been supportive in terms of finance as well. So that helps out a lot with our case.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Kunmoin, and glad to hear that the government program is that you've been able to benefit from a government program to set up your startup and have social impact. Let me ask also Celia, for example, how did you start? You mentioned that you started with a grant. If you can take us through your journey on accessing how you have been financing your business model.
Sure. So we actually started by crowdfunding money. So I don't know how many people still, I'm sure that's still happening quite a lot, but it was our first experience of crowdfunding and a bit of a baptism of fire. But we initially, the three of us, we all had different jobs because we didn't have any money, and we were working from like one desk at a co-working space because we couldn't afford 3 desks, and very classic kind of startup journey. And so we didn't really have anything yet. We didn't have a product or a service yet, and we knew that we had to fund it to make sure that we actually had something to show people and to be able to get further support later. So we crowdfunded the first program, the first pilot money. So it was about $14,000, and just, yeah, did the best that we could with what we had. And the first program went really well, and we learned a lot, obviously, as you should in a pilot and in all of your work. And we just, I suppose we did it quite organically. We did our first one, we crowdfunded again, we did a second one. We realized we needed to register because by that stage we were starting to get a little bit of traction. So we formalized the organization, the business. We started working with different partners, and we also realized, there were 3 of us that co-founded it. We started to realize where our different strengths were and the roles we had to play. And so I stepped into the managing director role, and my role was essentially to build the business and build the team and business development and look for those partners and opportunities. So it happened, over time, and really steamrolled, and then kind of had some growth spurts. But I think we were very lucky. We worked quite early with some partners that understood where we were at, and gave us initial kind of seed grant funding in small amounts to, I guess, help us further test our concept and idea and get us to the point where we had worked with about 50 women and really more understood what we were doing and what the challenges were, and created something that could be measured. And then we started, working with more partners that would partner with us on slightly bigger projects and bigger. And then eventually we got to a point where we started working with some partners that really saw the potential in what we were trying to do, and kind of started hitting those breaks, I suppose, and working with partners who knew that we weren't there yet. We weren't a big team yet, and we'd only been running for a few years, but they really took a risk on us and invested in us as an organization and enabled us to kind of take those next steps and to really establish ourselves. So I think a lot of it was about working with the right partners, figuring out what our business model was and the service that we could offer and our target market. And we have a complex business model, but really honing in on that and figuring out what our strategy was it took some time, and we're 7 years in, and I feel a lot of the time I still feel like we're a startup, but hopefully, we're becoming, I suppose, more used to being a bigger business and have kind of come through that growing phase and becoming a bit more established now and working with local and international governments now.
And I would like to dig a bit deeper on the moment when you said that, and we were growing up and then we decided we had to register as a business. What made you take that decision to register as a business and not as a social organization?
Yeah, it's a good question. I think it's still something I would say almost on an annual basis we come back to, and we kind of reevaluate. It's like, oh, should we have just been an NGO? But I think we ultimately and we have come up against that a few times, that barrier of did we make the right decision? But we realize that it's very true to our values. We believe that business is a driving force for good and can create really meaningful impact. And so for us, it's very important that we practice what we preach. So we support entrepreneurs, and many organizations can do that in many different ways. And I think one of the unique things that we can bring to the table is that we are entrepreneurs ourselves, and we have built a sustainable business model, and we understand how difficult that is. We understand it's really difficult to work within not really all the time enabling business environments with difficult legal structures or governance structures and all of the challenges that come with emerging economies. We understand so many of those things. And obviously for myself, as a white woman, I have a level of privilege that is not comparable to the women that we support and work with. But I suppose it gives us a level of insight into the environment that they're operating in. And we've learned so much from that ourselves, and we're able to pass those learnings on and to support women and really understand the different things that they need to navigate. So it is hard. It's having that kind of hybrid business model is not easy, but we place ourselves as a service provider. And so rather than trying to become a big NGO, for example, we tend to work with NGOs, and we work with them as bringing that kind of specialist lens to help improve their work and their programs, and try to scale up and support the work that they do as a subcontractor or as one, they're kind of like our clients, for example. So we're more like a consulting firm, I suppose, in terms of business model. And I think that it's definitely it's difficult to navigate, but it helps us understand the private sector and the role that we play within that ecosystem much more deeply, I think, than it would otherwise.
Excellent. Thank you for explaining the rationale and how one can use different approaches to support social impact. And of course, one of them could be NGOs or through inclusive business models or social enterprises. Thank you very much. Let me now go back to Mint. So Mint, if you can take us through how did you raise your first funding to support your vision of more inclusive learning?
You're referring to me, right? Sorry. Yeah, okay. So we started really organically. I've got about a decade of experience in the education space, running for-profit business in the enrichment and education space. Took some of that money, the profits from there, to do R&D to come up with early years literacy curriculum to benefit children. So to date, we've got English literacy programs that are effective for non-native English speakers and financial literacy programs for children. as well as digital literacy for children in the early years. So after that R&D of about 5 years and coming up with a social enterprise model, because we started off with a pay what you want model, it didn't work. Then we started fine-tuning a percentile, and we finally came up with the 70-30% model, where we provide 70% in-house subsidies for those who are low income, and we balance out our enrollment to the 70-30% and hiring 30% on the operational team from persons with intellectual and physical disabilities. So after firming up that model and finding it to be rather sustainable in that sense, and something that we can leverage to expand further, we actually came up with a very small, we actually went to the government to request for a certain level of grant funding to support hiring during the earlier stage so that we could come up with a training program. But of course, they seem to appreciate the business model, and very thankfully, they gave us our first startup capital. And from there, it's been history. We managed to raise a small sum to start a brick and mortar store, and brick and mortar store saw a good 30% one-on-one growth. And then by the 18th month, we had impact investors coming in to expand those brick and mortar stores, as well as the education technology funds.
Thank you very much. And that's also very good exposition of different ways how the government can support social businesses, and through as an investor, also as an enabling business environment, and how the government can then help leverage private investment and bring impact investors to continue that initial work. So thanks very much. I think with this, we are reaching out to the end of our session. And I would like to give the opportunity to each of today's speakers to reflect on the digital transformation that we are undergoing, and to let us know on your views, what is one critical element to ensure that we don't leave anyone behind in this process of digital transformation. So if you had to choose something where governments or development actors and partners should focus to ensure that digital transformation will be inclusive for all, what would that be? Cusó, let's start with you.
Hi, could you repeat the question again?
What is the one element that is critical to ensure digital inclusion?
Okay, one element to ensure digital inclusion. I think is, okay, so should I give it from the perspective of farmers or consumers, or?
From your experience, and that you're trying to support small-scale farmers to have a better income, what will be critical to support them to be part of and take advantage of the digital platforms, for example?
Okay, so so if we talk about supporting farmers, like I mentioned multiple times before, that I think demand is the crucial factor to supporting our farmers. Therefore, if there's one thing that I have to choose to make sure that we do to ensure the digital inclusion, I think it would actually be the platform or the e-commerce store itself, in my perspective. And when I say that, I mean that a lot of time, because I also come from like a development background as well. I studied like global studies, and a lot of time we look at things in a really big picture, and how to bring development to the community, right? And we often forget that actually elements such as the design of the website, the font size, font itself, colors, the way things are laid out, which has a huge impact on customer experiences, is actually really crucial, and that would actually indicate the demand, or has such a big influence on the demand, which the demand that will be connected to our farmers. So I think my one thing would be to ensure that the platform technology that we design has to really come from customers' need and customer desire, and also design it in a way that not only just a small group of people would be able to use it, but an extensive group of people who would also be able to enjoy it, use it. Either it's the design, the language, or just basically make it easy for people to use.
Thank you very much. Let me ask Celia, what will be for you critical to ensure that we don't leave anyone behind in digital transformation?
I actually feel like that was a fantastic response. Like just acknowledging how much more work needs to be done in terms of making digital tools accessible and inclusive. I suppose to add to that, I also really believe that role models are incredibly important in the things that we put out there. So for example, at the moment we're looking at, you know, scaling up things like financial literacy for entrepreneurs, as I mentioned before, and we're realizing that it's so important to make sure that we include the right role models in so much of this work. If we're going to be truly inclusive and accessible, then we have to show people that, you know, they can see themselves reflected in many of these materials. And in many of the things that are being designed for them, regardless of ability, disability, gender, ethnicity, religion, like they need to see themselves reflected in these business environments and networks, so that they want to join them and they want to access tools and resources and digital support. So I think, yeah, that would be my take on it, is the importance of using the right role models.
Thank you, Celia. Let me turn to Mintley.
Yep. So yeah, I think I echo what you said about, you know, having inclusive role models. I think that would be, I mean, it would be extremely important and critical for people to really walk the talk in that sense. And I think that would be that would be a very good, a positive head start for quite a few of the initiatives.
Thank you. And so to our last speaker, Ms. Thao Nguyen.
Yes, thank you, the moderator. Yes, in the digital economy, and yeah, in digital inclusion is an important role of business, because their impact to employees, suppliers, customers, and for all people, especially for low-income people. So my opinions about critical issues for the solution that left no one behind, as I mentioned, the PPP model, partnership of government and private sector, is very important. And together with the partnership with international organizations, development organizations, in the process, and to support enterprise IB model in digitalization their business, and also toward IB model. Thank you.
Thank you very much. And this pretty much wraps today's session. And it's been a really great pleasure. And I would like to thank the speakers for taking us on their journey of developing and impact inclusive business, on how you've designed for low-income and marginalized groups in mind. You've developed services that are accessible in malls. You've used dual pricing systems. You've developed partnerships as needed. You've walked the talk by introducing inclusive employment practices or registering as a business. I'm also very much interested by all the comments you've made on how you design with a gender and a cultural lens, and how you design for the customer, so that it has an impact, and that you can deliver on your business. I also really like the need, how you highlighted the need to build digital skills, financial literacy, and the potential that we have to harness digital technologies for having greater impact. But also, I want to acknowledge your work and investments and time, and that developing an inclusive business is not an easy task. It takes time. It takes developing networks. It requires building trust, investing for the long term. And I've been very happy to hear that some of you have been able to benefit from government programs, either through financing or facilitating or training, or giving you more exposure. And I think that's the way to go. Governments can play a very critical role in incentivizing and supporting social businesses, inclusive business, social enterprises, to develop their idea and to grow and have a greater impact. With this, I would like to thank our panelists and our audience for joining us in this discussion. We have more discussions the rest of the day, and I will now pass it on to the technical team for announcements and how to continue following us today.